People that stick with their stock wheels have long been a target of ridicule in the car community. In some cases, the relentless teasing may be warranted due to certain heinously ugly wheels that automakers choose to put on their cars. But recently, it seems that the car community is warming up to cars rolling around on their original wheels. With this in mind, I have found a nice and convenient way of ranking certain OEM wheels and deducing which ones are worth keeping around and which ones should be banished to the scrapyard. So, to rank these wheels, we will be using a tier list, which, of course, is the end-all be-all ranking solution. And we've got 5 different tiers. So, of course, the best would be exquisite taste. These are for the ones that fit the car they came on perfectly and fit even other cars perfectly. The next one would be solid wheels. So, I would say it's like a good design, something that I wouldn't necessarily even replace. Next one is meh, which is like, oh, okay, it's just, it exists. This one's ugly but cool, so this will probably be for all those 90s wheels, And then, of course, there's barf, which that's pretty self-explanatory. So our first wheel is the ones from the Nissan 370Z, and before you go like, oh my god, the Nissan 370Z didn't come on replica TEs from the factory, you're right, it didn't. It came on these, and they look pretty good. They fit the car all right. I'll put them in solid. The next wheel is almost a bona fide race wheel because it comes on the Porsche GT3 RS. And again, it's a very solid looking wheel. I would put it in solid wheel. The next one is that Audi 6-spoke wheel. And I think they look all right. Like, Rotiform does a version of them that I would say looks way better just because, the fitment and all that. But they look fine, but they look kind of funky if you've ever seen one on like an A4 convertible or something. But then it looks a little weird. So I say meh. Like, it doesn't really make me mad or anything, but they just kind of exist. Alright, so the next one, the BBS RS. And before I say, oh no, this is the wheel from they put this on just about everything. Like, almost any German car you can imagine in the 80s had something like this on it, or from the factory, or it most definitely had it as an aftermarket option because this was like the go-to for German cars in the 80s. Like, you'll see a Porsche 911 on these, you see M3s on these, you see Mercedes on these, and even not cars that aren't German. Like, I've seen a lot of RX-7s, I've seen a few GTRs, I think, on BBS RSs, and it just goes to show how astonishingly good looking it is. So if you have these, you do have exquisite taste. Alright, so I think this wheel, I think it's from the F-150 Lightning, this is like the textbook example of ugly but cool because it comes on an amazing car. I don't know what to say. It looks kind of like a Beyblade, to be honest, and I don't necessarily know that I would want that on a car, but it's cool because it's got the 90s aesthetic and that's really coming back. So I'll say ugly but cool. It's not barf worthy. I'm not reaching for the garbage can when I see these. Alright, the next one are the wheels from the BMW M1, I believe. And again, these are exquisite. These exquisite taste because they just fit the car so well. And they fit other cars from the 80s so well. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily put them on anything because I bet like the bolt pattern's weird or whatever. But you can get like a Rotiform version again that looks really good and it's very similar to the original wheel. Alright, these next ones I think are wheels from maybe a BMW 5 Series, I believe, from the 80s or 90s. And again, I mean, BMW, they haven't missed yet in this little tier list. I will say these are solid. They're not nearly as ubiquitous as these two, but I mean, they work pretty good. From what I remember is they look good on the car they came on. Oh, okay. Ooh. Oh, that one, this next wheel, I think it's from the Honda Accord. I mean, why? Like, this is the problem with new wheels. Like, this is why all those fake T37s and such are selling so well, because I think it's mostly Japanese car makers, but I mean, I'm not gonna cut the Americans and the Germans slack here too. They do plenty of this, but for whatever reason, Honda and Toyota and Nissan nowadays have decided they want to put the end-all be-all ugliest wheels on their cars for no reason. And one, this is ugly because it's got like basically the V-Lone logo on it. Like, I mean, come on. Really? But also it's 2 different colors, and I know that this will look really bad in a few years, especially when there's curb rash and stuff all over it. Like, this is our first barf-worthy wheel. Like, truly. Alright, this next one is I think it's from the C4 Corvette. I mean, I don't have too much of an opinion on these. It's very 80s. So, I'll say meh. Alright, so you know how I said BMW, they hadn't really missed yet? Well, they just missed. Because this wheel, I would say, looks like a deformed starfish. Like, honestly, and I know it came on, like, I think the 3 Series in the 90s, which, I mean, you don't see them on their stock wheels anyways. They're on the aforementioned replica TE37s or, like, some BBSs if the owner's feeling particularly fancy. But, I mean, these are terrible. Especially seeing what BMW is capable of as far as wheels go. Alright, so this wheel, I mean, it's exquisite taste. The Bugatti EB110, I would say, has some of the best factory wheels I've ever seen. And again, it's a wheel that works good, not just on the car it came on, but on a lot of other cars. Like, I've seen M3s on them. Like, they're great. And next up is the Ferrari F40. And this is kind of tricky because every part of this car is legendary. And I think the wheels fit it pretty good. But, I don't know. I mean, they're almost a little dated. And I'll say a solid wheel. I mean, they're not nowhere near as... If we're going to compare these two, I'll take that every day of the week. Alright, so now we've got a little bit of a speed round. So the next stop is the Alfa Romeo Giulia wheels. I would say they're meh. I mean, they don't really do much for me, but they match the car pretty good. The Volkswagen GTI wheels, they're ugly but cool. They fit the car decent enough again, but they look like an old phone. Here we go. I don't even know what these are. They're fine, I guess. I think those are Porsche wheels. Again, ugly but cool because they've kind of got the old 90s aesthetic. And I mean, but they don't really do much for me. And all right, these are more Audi wheels. I'll say those are solid. They look nice. Mercedes wheels, again, solid. They're not the craziest thing out there, but they fit the car really well. The Shelby wheels, those are really cool because they're made out of carbon and they're exquisite taste. Alright, so I remember I read once about these, Car and Driver, and they might have been gassing it up a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. But they said, I think they're like God's snowflakes or something, which that he made on his CNC machine. And that might be a bit over the top. Like, that might be the classic automotive journalist hyperbole. But I'll say they're exquisite taste, but I mean, other than that's the only good part of the M4 GTS. These are kind of interesting because the first generation Miata, I would say the design of that car fits these wheels really, really well. Like, Mazda did their thing, but just this picture of the wheels makes me think, what the hell were they thinking? These look like if you took a set of Watanabes and walked them through a beehive and they got stung 50 million times and now they're all swollen. Like, that's kind of what these look like. So I will say they're in meh. Like, it splits the difference because they work good on the car, but by themselves, I don't really like them. Alright, so this is like almost the exact opposite of that. This is like when you think insanely expensive Japanese wheels, well, when you think T37s, and I've talked a lot about those, but you also think of LMGT2s because these are insanely expensive nowadays. And I mean, these are an iconic wheels, so they can only go in exquisite taste. Same with the LMGT4s. I mean, I don't like these as much, but I mean, they come on some of the most iconic Japanese cars of all time. Like, come on. I mean, you weren't going to expect them to go anything but exquisite. All right, so I think that's a pretty good wheel. I mean, I think it's on the Porsche 911, but I mean, that's a nice wheel. Okay, well, I see what I've done here. Well, it appears as if I've saved the worst for last. And before I really get into the meat and potatoes of this segment, I think you guys should know something about me. I happen to be a bit of a Tesla hater. While I will try my best not to let that color my decision on this particular wheel, I mean, I'm thinking my mind's pretty much made up. This is the ugliest wheel I've seen in a very long time. And I don't really know what Elon Musk was thinking when he decided to plop these wheels that look as if someone has stolen the roof off of Oscar the Grouch's home and cut some holes in it. People have done the, like, turbofan look, I guess, on electric cars so much better than Tesla did. Like, it's honestly kind of sad to me because Mercedes kind of did something cool where it was a little more low profile and like the turbofan almost kind of blended in with the wheel, so it didn't look stupid. As I was making this video, I realized that most of the wheels on this list aren't really that bad, and most are nowhere near ugly enough to warrant the absolute disgust that a stock wheel and tire setup would garner on the internet or at a Cars and Coffee. With that being said, there is still something to be said for the aspect of custom wheels that allows the owner of the car to display a little bit of their own taste and personality, even if good taste is skedaddled off as soon as they pressed buy on a set of Fugazi SSRs.